Welcome to Voices of Tech and Litigation with your host, Ray Beken. This podcast will broaden your knowledge in the use of technology in business and our everyday world. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, chorusconsulting.net. Now here's the host of Voices of Tech and Litigation, Ray Beken.
Welcome, everybody. I've got a guest today, John-Pierre Dufour. He actually happens to be a colleague of mine. We've talked a lot about on this podcast. We've talked about e-discovery and fraud and had different guests on that talk about those things. What we're going to try to hit on today are things that maybe others don't think about, things that we run into that in the litigation world or the world of talking about fraud and stuff like that others don't maybe think of. So I guess we're going to jump in. John-Pierre Dufour has kind of held every seat you can think of in the IT side of things. So I'm going to let him introduce himself real quick.
Hi, my name is John-Pierre Dufour. I've been I started as a hardware technician and worked my way up to CIO. I've sat pretty much in every chair. I can actually program in several languages, and I enjoy my IT career. I've also been doing forensics for 24 plus years, and that started because I was a hardware technician. As a hardware technician in IT, back when I started, we had to learn sectors and memory and how to divide things, and it wasn't a plug and play world. You just didn't plug a card in the computer. You actually set the memory that the card was going to use, or even the memory slot and device area that the card was going to take up. You actually flipped dip switches on the card and did hardware things and counted sectors on hard drives and even formatted hard drives in a certain way. So, I've been around a while in the IT world, and that has led and helped very much in my forensic endeavors.
Yeah, I can attest to that. So why don't we jump in and start by describing some kind of out of the box things, right? Incidents prompted by litigation or law firms or other legal departments, things that other people might not think of. Start talking kind of out of the box things from your side.
We get a lot of questions on can we see email? Can you give me an email history, or can we track the text, or can we see the messages? Some of the things that they don't think about, because people do clear their browser history, is you can determine a lot with the person's browser history. We also get desktop device timelines in Windows. We can apply with forensic software. We can actually track timelines of all the different things that are happening on the computer into a timeline. Like an email was sent at this time, a text was sent at that time. This person opened a document at this time, went down the graphics at this time. The other things are access histories, files, websites, that kind of thing. When it started, when it happened, when they were last accessed. Some of the problems with last access histories is that if people allow the device to go forward past the point of when there was a problem, sometimes you won't be able to see the last time it was accessed, because it'll now be previous and you won't catch it in the past. But the other thing is data destruction. Did the person actually delete data, or were things deleted? And the other side of that is mandated data destructions. In other words, some people want to see, can we certify that this was deleted? That all comes from litigation type of docket areas.
Okay, so you're talking about digging in deeper than just the things that we normally think about. Okay, we've got your emails, we've got your text messages, we've got all this information, but kind of proving what's going on in the back end of systems and stuff like that, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how about some incidents that are not prompted by litigation, maybe that with law firms or legal departments, but being prepared because it may end up in litigation. Talk a little bit about that.
Correct. For instance, you get information requests, and we have to strike out the PI data or the health information out of it. So, you have redacted information requests that get handled. You have the ability for an admin in IT does something wrong and they want to find out, what is this admin done? This doesn't necessarily come from the legal department. Sometimes it comes from the IT department or the HR department, and legal has nothing to do with it in the beginning. But then they decide, well, we want to prosecute. So having us come into one of these type of things before it happens, we also do communication intrusions, suspected third-party malfeasance, and then intellectual property theft. In any one of these, it can come from a different department within the organization and not necessarily from the legal department. And when they find out something's wrong, then they decide, okay, we want to prosecute, or we've gotten the evidence together. So when you treat some of those actions like it should be a defensible case in the beginning, like it is going to litigation, we're able to present that data in that type of fact to them. So it's in a defensible form already, and they can take it directly into litigation if they decide to do so.
Yeah. So it sounds like no matter what you're doing technology wise, making sure you're doing it in a manner that later on is provable and defensible and things like that. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell me, what are some procedures to perform on a device when maybe you have an incident, something has happened, and what are kind of processes and procedures?
Yeah, one of the best things to do when you have a device that can be happening at the time is to literally shut the device down, unplug it, and take it to a safe location that might have a defined access point, i.e. a safe, right? Put it in the company safe, put it in the server room where people have, certain people have carded access, or put it in an area where there's an access control function, so that you can say only these people had access to this area, because that begins to make it right then and there. That starts to treat the data with a chain of custody, which allows you to, the issue might have been occurring, and you preserve the data that's on the machine that it was occurring on while it was occurring, and nobody else has touched it. Nobody else has turned it on. They haven't changed the access times. Everything is frozen as of that point in time. And you've given the ability to say only X people had access to this area. So if something comes up and defensible in court, like i.e., well, instead of 50 admins having access to the data and maybe looking at it and doing stuff to the machine and changing the dates and all that changes the ability to defend it in court. And at times it stops even though you turn the machine off, if the infected machine if that machine was infected and attacking the network, you've effectively stopped it from attacking the network because you turned it off, if that was the case.
Yeah, that makes sense. So quarantine it, right?
Correct.
Make sure nobody's messing with it. And this may be a limitation on my knowledge, but say lack of quarantine and you let somebody keep using a device or something like that. I mean, what are some issues that can arise from if you don't take that step?
Yeah, depending on the device, the data can get deleted, data can get overwritten. Even in Windows, every time you turn on a Windows machine, you're going to change the last access date on a certain amount of files, just system files, because the machine's booting up and it opened those files, and those files could have been files under attack at one point in time, and you would have known that if you're able to take a forensic image of a machine And when I say that, I'll make a quick note to that. Because the machine was turned off, when we turn the machine back on, we're not turning the machine on and allowing it to access its internal structure. We're bringing it up in an environment where we can actually take a snapshot of what happened on that machine. We call it a forensic image. And we take a forensic image of that machine, and it captures that machine in a point in time of what was happening when it happened. So we can prove in the background, and we can keep the data intact that was happening at that time, and it doesn't get changed by Windows booting up, the machine booting up.
Yeah, so that jogs my memory. Let's say no matter who you are, you get a piece of evidence or you get a device and it's got information on it. Don't plug it in and try to look at it. Don't try to access it. Wait for your expert. Wait for somebody that knows what they're doing so it can be done in a more of a forensically sound manner. Is that what I'm getting?
Yep. Yeah. Especially because even in the ransomware activities right now, the data itself might not be accessible. It might be encrypted, right? But even in that, if something comes up, the FBI is constantly getting codes. The Homeland Security is constantly getting codes, and they've started to bust these rings. So sometimes they have the encryption codes to unencrypt that data. And if you've messed with it, turned it on, done things to it, tried to break it, I mean, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage from getting it fixed if they have the ability to fix it, or proving in court that this was done by this perpetrator. And this is what it costs you, right?
Right.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. And we've got people that inadvertently made those mistakes over time, right? Like we've got clients that we're trying to help out, but it's like they've almost corrupted the data, if you will. If that makes sense. Okay. Okay. Well, give me a kind of a plan of attack. What's the most important plan to have in place when something happens, when you know you're going to need to be looking at data? So what's kind of the attack?
Part of it is company culture, but it really is, you should have a communication plan. And the reason I started that with part of its company culture is that I've worked in a variety of situations with a variety of different types of organizations, and the way management or the way an emergency is approached is the ability between having something calm happen and everybody running around with their hair on fire. And that plan is a communication plan and a practice communication plan. And it can go to the board of directors. It can come from the C-level executives, but it has to come from a top level thing. I'll give you for instance, and I'm going to take you back a bit a ways. There, a long time ago, back in the 90s, there was the I love you virus. And the I love you virus sent a message that basically said, I love you. And as soon as the person clicked on it, it attacked a Windows environment. So the I love you virus attacks our network. We weren't a Windows network totally. We're a split Novell Windows network. So it attacked the Windows side of the network and was very successful at attacking it. And on the Novell side, the Novells looked at it and said, I don't know what this is, and just nothing happened to our Novell servers.
Yeah.
The director of IT at the time comes down and he slams his fist on the table in front of me, and I was the infrastructure administrator at the time. That I ran the entire infrastructure of our company. And he said, I want to find who this perpetrator is. So we said, okay. And he wanted someone to hang, and he marched upstairs and, had the president of the company on the line and did all these things and went on and on and on. So about a day went by, about 16 to 18 hours. We found out who it was. We've tracked it down in the logs and on the servers and everything else, and tracked it down. And he was the one that opened the email that started the thing. Now, in saying the reason this makes it, everybody was like, well, how could a director infect your network? He shouldn't have admin access. Well, he was the type of director that wanted admin access because it was important. It was a high profile thing. Now, as the years went by, I can say that some C-level executives have normal access. They don't have admin access or enterprise access. And then we do have other situations where, yeah, some people that have enterprise access shouldn't have enterprise access, but it's a attitude. They think it's a step up. A lot of companies don't follow that model anymore, but it does happen in smaller companies where the owner of the company has the same access as maybe the IT person and can infect things or do things. So that's a kind of story. In that story, to get to that communication plan, if everybody was involved in the communication plan when the I Love You virus attacked, then it would have been a calmer incident than somebody smashing their fist on the table saying, I want to hang the person in charge.
Right.
If you had correct communication, because legal should be involved in this, HR should be involved in this, the board of directors might be involved in this. Everybody's going to make decisions based upon their pain level. If a board of executives are involved in it, they might be worried about the company's stock price, or the C-level executives might be worried about the company's stock price. And as soon as they find out that somebody finds out that they've had an issue and it gets in the news or something and their stock price plummets, heads are going to roll. So there's issues internal to the company that people are worried about other pieces. They're not worried about, they want it stopped, but they're also thinking 5 steps down the line of how is this going to affect my job, or how is this going to affect the company? And you really need to have a communication plan in place where you can shore up those areas so that the technical problem can be fixed and corrected and handled in a manner that allows you to legally take it to litigation, or to minimize the risk and damages that are about to occur based on the fact that you had this scenario.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. All right, curveball question then.
Okay.
How important do you think it is for companies out there, no matter how many people they have in place, to utilize maybe a third party whenever they're getting some of this stuff done? In other words, are you going to want to throw your IT person on the stand if something happens way down the road in the litigation process? How important is it to have someone that is third party independent to be on your side?
Yeah, part of it is the ability to step aside. The same reason that you hire accountants to come in and do your accounting and auditing of a company and their company records are the same reason you engage a third party, a forensic person, security outfit, some type of forensics. It's the exact same thought process. When you have to go before the SEC and show them your books, you make sure you have an accounting firm that can stand with you and say, we audited those books. It's the exact same principle. So you do want to bring somebody in, and you don't, because also the IT person that you put on the stand, if we're just going to use that example, you put that IT person on the stand, is he worried about his job? Is he worried about his kids, his employment at the company? Is he going to get fired if he says the wrong thing? Right? Is he going to be taken out?
Point.
Well, I'm just, so from that standpoint, if I'm the guy standing there taking the brunt of the thing, I can speak towards the IT. I can tell what the data shows. I'm not passionate about the company. I'm not afraid for my children. I'm doing a job based on the data that I see. And I've also sat in that position. So attorneys are going to cross-examine me, which I've been ready for, right? In other words, I stick to the facts. I stay to the questions asked. I know how they're going to position themselves to possibly trip me up, where not necessarily do other employees at that company have that benefit. And so therefore, yes, I think, just like I said, you bring an auditor to, an issue, or you bring, something's going to happen with your taxes even, right? You always hire a professional to make sure that things are done properly. Same concept.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so quick takeaways on my part before we end, because we're running right up against the time that we try to allot. Quick takeaways: don't go it alone. Think of the end in mind, right? And then, man, you just hit on some things that using a third party, they're not emotionally tied. They're not worried about anything other than the facts. Anything you'd add to those 3 takeaways?
No, I think that's a very good generalized, statement of what was said.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, again, I'm Ray Beken with Chorus Consulting. Actually, this week, a colleague, John-Pierre Dufour. He's also with Chorus Consulting, but handles a lot of our stuff that maybe many of you out there don't think of as forensics and e-discovery, but things you might want to think of and think out of the box of. Anything you want to close with, John-Pierre, before we head out?
No, just thank you for listening, and thank you for the time.
Yeah, I hope you got something out of this. And if you need anything, you can always give us a holler. chorusconsulting.net. Thank you much.
You've been tuning into Voices of Tech and Litigation with your host, Ray Beken. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, chorusconsulting.net. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.